Hi everybody, this is Debra Burgin from HeartfeltInkspiration.com, and I'm here with you today with 5 of my favorite stamping tips. So this is going to be fast, and we'll see if I can get them done in the time I think I can. So my first tip is about how to flag the ends of a strip of cardstock or a ribbon. Now, I know that we've got punches that will do this, but sometimes your strip is not one of the ones that the punch accommodates. So this is the way we used to do it before we had these punches, and this is still a useful thing to know. So what you don't want to do is to cut in from each corner. That's a sure way of making your strip smaller and smaller as you try to get the sides aligned. Instead, you're going to start in the middle, and you're going to snip a certain, however deep you want the angle here. And before I do anything, I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to make the same cut on the opposite side. And I do it right away before I forget how long I made that first cut. Now that I've established the depth of my flag and the center, I'm now going to go in from the corner to the end of the snip there, and this one too. And there's my flag. And I'll quickly do the other one. And there's my flagged panel. Now, it works exactly the same on a piece of ribbon. This one I'm going to be using a piece that I think I used when I did the ribbon video. And it's the same rule, except I'm using my ribbon scissors. I snip into the middle, or the center, not the middle, and into the center. And then from the corner to the, well, I sometimes call that the crotch, but it depends on who my audience is. And there we have it. So that's not perfect, but again, I'm not a machine, so that's how you can make a flag or a forked end or whatever you want to call that. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is how to work with a little piece of cardstock like this and a punch when there's not enough to hold on to. So supposing that I want to punch a flower from this piece. Now, I actually can hold this, but my stampers know that sometimes I give them a very little piece of paper to work with. So typically I also provide them with these sticky notes so that they can create a handle on the edge of the cardstock. It's not holding much, but just enough to hold on to so that they can use a little piece of paper like that. So these sticky notes I buy a lot of them because they're just useful in my stamp area. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is something I think I learned in a convention years ago, and it is how to peel the backs off Stampin Dimensionals. So I have seen some people using what we call the pokey tool to stab this and lift this up, but I'm going to give you something that doesn't require another tool, but it is something that I have at my fingertips all the time, and in fact, it is my fingertip. It's actually the edge of my nail. Now, you've seen enough videos from me to know that I do not have long nails at all. These are working hands. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to take a nail and I'm going to press into the center of a dimensional. Now, you see what that did? That gave me something like a dimple, and it actually kind of flipped up the edge, and then I've got something to peel. Okay, here's another one. Here's another one. I'm sticking to one of them. Here's another one. And again, it's stab it. I'll just show you that flipped up side there. Grab it and pull it off. So this is the card I'm making for our grandson for his birthday coming up. And I will just put this right here. And a little bit later, I will add this little banner. Now, this is another tip. Someday I'll do a bunch of tips on punches. Okay, so that is ready to just be finished off. Okay, that was tip number 3. Tip number 4. Especially when I have new stampers, there are challenges getting things straight. So here's what sometimes happens. So I've got a smaller panel that's going to go on a bigger panel. And, oh dear, I'm putting on my adhesive. Okay, and then many times people are looking and they put it down and uh-oh, trouble. Now, depending on the kind of adhesive you're using, you may or may not be able to get this off without ripping or wrinkling or something like that. Okay, so that happened to work. But a better tip is to not get it crooked to begin with. And so here's what I teach new stampers, people who are new to working with paper. Instead of just putting it down and hoping for the best, I'm going to look, before I ever put anything down, I'm going to look to see how much margin did Debra give me to go around here. And I can see that it's about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to put one corner down and hold it. And then before I slap the whole thing down, I'm going to look around. I'm going to pivot this so I can get it straight. And when I'm satisfied that it's straight, so the only thing I'm holding is this right here, I'm going to put it down. And that is a much better result. So work with one corner and pivot your piece to get it down straight. And my last tip is one of the favorite things I love to do. So I've got this Christmas card that I'm working with. Okay, time to move this. And I've got this fancy frame and this, something that's got adhesive on it, this little piece. Now, truthfully, I could have stamped Peace on Earth on a piece of cardstock and cut this out around it, but I'm going to show you a slightly different effect that I want. So if I were to just put this down, even if I popped it up with Stampin' Dimensionals, it's almost too much white on white. So instead what I want to do is called walking the edge. So I'm going to take the same color, Blackberry Bliss. I'm going to take my little piece of cardstock, we're typically not working with a piece this small, and I'm going to put it perpendicular up and down to my ink pad, and I'm just going to walk, 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 walk. Then I'm going to carefully turn it. I want to make sure I don't touch that edge. Walk, 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 turn, walk, 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 turn, walk, walk, walk. Now, I'm going to put this down, and you can see just the slightest edge. I'm not really one who's fond of sponging or daubing, scraping the edge, because I don't like that it gets ink on the face of the piece, but this is just enough definition to set it apart. Now, the one caution is this really has to dry, because unlike the face of the cardstock, the raw edge seems to want to hold the ink on. And believe me, I've often enough touched that and had it on my fingers, etc., etc. Bad things happen. Okay, so I've done this already, and let this one dry. And that's what that's going to look like. And you see how much neater, not neater, cooler that is to have just that little definition there around that piece. So I would definitely put dimensionals underneath there, and that just by itself, no ribbon, that's it, is a beautiful card. So those are my 5 tips. Cutting a notch in the end of a ribbon or a cardstock strip, using a sticky note for a handle, how to remove the backs of Stampin' Dimensionals, how to align one piece on top of another by just holding the corner, and walking the edge of a piece for just a little bit of definition. So those are my tips for today, and I did it in less than 10 minutes. Yahoo! I will see you next week.